Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to tonight's episode of NS9 Idol. I'm your host, Jim Rosati. With me tonight, we've got Neil. We've got Doug. Everybody, Happy New Year. I feel like it's been a year. I feel like I haven't seen you guys since last year.
It's been a long time.
I think you used that on your last podcast. Come on, bro.
Yeah, no, I know. I just did that because I know if DiNardo's. Yeah, I know if DiNardo's watching. You know.
I'm a teacher who went back
Yeah.
to school yesterday. I heard that joke maybe 25 times.
Yeah, so I mean, we had to sneak it in here. We had to sneak it in. But no, I hope you guys had a really good, holiday break, New Year's, all that. New Year's was good for everybody.
Yes,
Good
sir.
New Year's?
Yeah, nice and quiet.
Yeah. I traveled home to Pittsburgh for New Year's, so I was in Pittsburgh for New Year's Eve. That was fun. It was wild how like New Year's and the Ohio State Georgia game ended. It was like the exact same time. Like unless you had two TVs, you basically missed one of the other.
Oh no, we were so mad we had to turn it off to do the ball drop, and then we missed the field goal happening. No one was happy.
Yeah, no. So if you're an Ohio State fan, like Tyler's been in a bad mood really for like 3 days now.
Tough loss.
Ohio State lost. His favorite bar just closed. Like his one bar in his one town that he lives in, it's closed. It's say some prayers for Tyler.
He's struggling.
Yeah, no, he's on the struggle bus. But no, let's get right into this today. Like I said, thanks for hopping on here. This is round 2 of NS9 Idol. So we're gonna start off same format as last time. Each of our guests have brought a topic to the table for tonight. We flipped a coin before the show started. Doug won. Doug deferred. So Neil, what's your topic? Let's start things off.
Okay, so this one's going to be one like more open to everyone because my topic is how do we get a 2022 Orioles or a 2021 Tigers out of this team? Because obviously that has to be the goal. Like the goal has to be that we're taking that next step forward in our trajectory toward competition, because I know the goal is 2024, so this year there has to be an improvement. And to be fair, I think that the team is better. There's better bullpen, there's better hitting, there's better fielding. Rich Hill is actually a pretty decent signing, but I'm going to pose the question to you guys, like, what has to go right? And what really threw a wrench in this is that the fact that I was kind of under the assumption Brian Reynolds was staying. And after seeing the Mackey news today, I don't really think so. And so I think hitting that threshold of 81 wins or like 80 wins or something like that is going to be much, much harder, if that makes any sense. But I'll highlight 3 things from what I've noticed between like the Tigers and the Orioles. The first one is elite bullpen pitching, which I think is going to be the biggest hurdle to the Pirates. Both the 2021 Tigers and the 2022 Orioles had lights out bullpen that they got for basically nothing. They were almost all home run guys or waiver wire claims. And so I think you're going to have to look at guys like Stevenson stepping up, Holderman becoming the guy he's supposed to be, Bednar being healthy for a year, Yuri taking steps forward, Will Crow not having his arm fall off, and maybe Chase DeHong repeating the magic that he had last year, even though I don't really buy him doing that again this year. I don't know about what you guys think. And also elite defense. The 2022 Orioles played some amazing defense. And I don't know if the Pirates can replicate that this year. I know I like Cruz and Hayes on the left side, but the rest, and Choi's a good defensive first baseman, but I mean, the rest of the team is kind of mediocre at best. And so I just wanted to pose that, like, those are what I noticed, but what you guys would think it would take to get this team to 81 wins. And let's, for the fun of it, assume Reynolds sticks around.
Yeah, good question, Doug. What are your thoughts there? How can this team take that big of a step forward?
and I mean, I hate to say this, but it's really internal improvement, right? I mean, it's Hayes stepping up and hitting a little better.
Mhm.
It's Cruz cutting down errors and hitting better, getting on base more. It's Sawinski getting on base, cutting down strikeouts. The progression from Keller and Contreras, and the best thing that's happened to the bullpen this year is it looks like our starting pitching might be okay, and hopefully in April they won't all be throwing 3 innings and then go into the bullpen. Because I mean, our bullpen was okay, and we've got some talented arms in it,
Mhm.
but Will Crow, was dead. Bednar was overused, and
Yeah.
I think we should trade Bednar. I love him. I love the story. I love Renegade. I love it all. He looks to be kind of a heavy-set, out-of-shape guy that's not getting used properly, and I could just see him just falling off a cliff, at any point. I mean, we have other arms, but I think we could trade him now to a contender, maybe get something good. And then the other issue is it's the Brian Reynolds issue. We have to get an outfielder, and not in that trade. More than likely in that trade, we should get pitching. And, we already had, obviously we could use someone with ace-like stuff, but if we get somebody like that, he's not playing until June, third
Yeah.
week in June. And so even his impact is going to be somewhat lessened. And I mean, again, I would love to see Swaggerty blow up, but I'm not counting on it. Kanan Smith and Jigba, Cal Mitchell. I really think if we trade Reynolds, then in a separate trade, we need to find a 3+ WAR outfielder, somebody. I'm not putting my faith in Andahar, Connor Joe. I mean, they might help, but we need a legitimate player.
Yeah. I agree. And I will at least say, the rotation is probably the biggest thing that the team has improved on, because we won't be throwing out Bryce Wilson and Zach Thompson every 5 days. We have the arms where we can actually put 5 decent guys out. And if you need to go to that depth, well, we have Priester, Burrows, and Ortiz that are going to be chilling out in AAA. And not that I wish injury on any of these guys, but it would be kind of nice if one of them just happened to have a small IL stint that forced them to call someone up and put them on the MLB roster. So they stay for good, because that's what happened with Contreras last year. But in terms of the lineup, and I agree, Reynolds, if Reynolds goes, you need a center fielder, because I like Bay. I don't know if he's going to be the complete answer in center. I think he's going to be more of a utility guy that can play center. He can play second base. But I do think that I actually kind of like the Connor Joe signing. I think he pairs really, really well with Jack Sawinski, because Connor Joe matches left-handed pitching. That's what he's good at. And he can play a decent glove out in right field. And then you've also brought in the Santana and Choi platoon. And so we're not running into this issue last year where we would basically be useless against the left-handed starter. There were certain games we went into where it's a lefty, it's game over. We're starting 6 lefties against some. It was over from the beginning.
6 lefties hitting 200.
Right? It was awful. And so it's basic roster construction that we're finally getting to. But I actually do agree, because if Hayes hits at 110 WRC plus this year, he's a 5 to 6 win player. That is a huge jump. Having Cruz for an entire year is huge. And I think it depends on how soon the kids come with us. How soon do we get Endy? Because I am actually completely convinced he's going to be a star. Everything about his profile, I just love. So if you can get a lineup with Endy, even if Reynolds goes and you have a hitting Hayes, Endy, and Cruz, those are 3 huge players that we just wouldn't have had last season.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up, you brought up the Orioles, last year's Orioles, and I think we can, one major jolt to that team, and it kind of parallels the Pirates going into this year, was they had a stud catcher, right, who came up and just hit the ground running. And I mean, you could argue that Adley was, top 2 or 3 catcher in the American League last year. And so I think that's what you're kind of hoping you get out of Endy Rodriguez, that once he comes up, he kind of hits that ground running and he becomes like a star right away. I think that is a necessity, if you're wanting to kind of take that next step, like you said. I also agree, like Ke'Bryan Hayes is a big key to all of this, because I think, like no matter what, Ke'Bryan Hayes is going to be a solid major leaguer. Yeah. I think he's already proven that, like just with his glove alone, he doesn't have to hit. He's going to be fine. But if he does hit, he's adding a whole lot to his profile that, we saw maybe like in that month or so that he had his rookie season in the short year of 2020. I'm not saying like he has to do that, but if he can show just some sort of life with that bat and become an above average hitter, then yeah, you're looking at a really good baseball player. I don't know if the Pirates can take that step if Brian Reynolds isn't on this team, because internal options just don't exist.
They're not
like right now. Yeah, like from an outfield standpoint, the internal options aren't there.
It's so bad.
So I guess to kind of piggyback on this, like let's assume for now that Brian Reynolds is on the team. You still need some of these outfielders to step up, right? Mm-hmm. So, you got to kind of think, that Suwinski, Connor Joe platoon is maybe one piece of it. But, out of those other outfielders on this team, who are you guys thinking is going to be that guy? Like, who's going to be that guy to take the reins in that other corner outfield spot?
So I don't like this guy because I think he should have been cut after what he did to his girlfriend. But it's going to be Ji-Won Bae in my eyes. The guy is super fast. Like he is, to me, is if Travis Swaggerty was good. He's lightning fast. He has a plus glove in both the outfield. He can man center if he needs to, but he can also fill in at second base with Castro. He has really good bat the ball skills. His bat speed is great. He doesn't hit for the power you might like to see, but I would say it's either Bay or Smith Cannon, because I mean, unless you think Jared Jones is the guy, is that his name?
Well, as far as other outfielders, Jared Triolo.
Yeah, well, Triolo's isn't he like a utility guy?
Yeah, but he kind of plays all over. But like as far as the other guys you've got, Cal Mitchell, right?
Nope.
Andujar, Swaggerty, Kanan Smith, and Jigba.
I don't want Andujar on the opening day roster, so I think he's a lost cause.
I guess.
And then there's Marcano and Valade. Those are the other outfielders.
Yeah, Valade.
And then Gorski.
Yeah, probably the best thing that happens for the Pirates is that what Gorski did last year was for real, and it started translating at the upper levels really fast.
And I would love for that to happen. It just, for me, it screams that he's a 24-year-old playing against a bunch of teenagers.
We saw it the year before with another Matt Frazier, right? Yeah, he blew it up. It was almost, exact timing, he was at low A for this long. Double A, and and then preaching halt this year. So, and it doesn't mean he won't bounce back. Who knows what? But right, it's hard to we're the Pirates. We can't count on.
Can't count on good things.
Our front office counts on them.
Well, we don't get the Cardinals' devil magic of like Brendan Donovan coming up out of nowhere and being a 4-WAR player. Like, it just never happens.
Yeah,
no,
it's disgusting with it. I don't care who they bring up. I don't care. They take a and they put him in as a closer, and he's fantastic. And the next year he's a starter, and he's fantastic. And we can't ever get a pitcher to have 2 good years in a row.
I will say this: like the starting rotation is going to at least be like very serviceable, right? And so again, you look at those guys, and you're saying, okay, who out of these people needs to really step up? And I think the obvious choices are Keller and Contreras. Like those two just need to kind of take like the next step in order to this rotation be actually good. But yeah, like the days are over where, hopefully over where Dwayne Underwood Jr. is starting a game, as a opener. Hopefully those days are over.
I hope he's out of the bullpen entirely. He's so bad. Nice guy. So bad. But no, I agree. Like the rotation, I genuinely believe, while healthy, is like middle of the road in the league. And I think you brought up a good point that's saying just even having like a serviceable rotation is going to save the bullpen arms. I can, like they said, poor Will Crow was dying out there. His arm was shredded cheese. I mean, hopefully Bednar isn't pitching 50, 60 pitches to close out a game against the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Like we actually have like actual options in there. And so I guess when I look at this team at the moment, maybe I'm pessimistic, but I see 70, 71 wins at a max, especially if Reynolds isn't there. But I guess I can convince myself in a universe where the prospects come up, they start performing, and like you go on that run after the All-Star break that you kind of saw the Orioles were doing when they had Gunnar and Henderson come up. Now I will
and they were doing American League East.
Yeah, I will and going for us is they're in the American League East. We're in the NL Central. The Cubs don't terrify me. The Cubs are kind of mediocre. The Reds are going to be worse than us. The Brewers, I think, are the best team in the division. The Cardinals' pitching staff is kind of a mess. Like, there is something for the taking here. I'm not saying it's going to be immediately to wild card. I don't think that's going to happen at all. But I do think we can take advantage of a weaker NL Central, like the Tigers did, where they just had a serviceable pitching staff and an elite bullpen with a terrible offense. Like, they were like second to last in the league in offense and still won 77 games. And before the collapse last year, we're like the team on the up and up.
Yeah, the schedule's a little different. We play every team. We won't play as many games against the NL Centrals we have in the past. Bad timing for that, right? Great, more games against the Yankees, and
well, isn't this still like 13 games or something like that? Like, I still think like a good.
It's a decent amount. I mean, it's still schedule.
But yeah, I mean,
but
the Cubs just signed Hosmer, so
right. We rolled into Cincinnati last year. They were 2-23, and we lost. I mean, we're so sure we're going to go in and steamroll Cincinnati, and I think one game was rained out. I think we won one of the 3 remaining. I mean, it's just every time you count, hey, we're going to beat up on Cincinnati and the Cubs, and it's just not how it works out.
Funny, maybe I'm too young to be this pessimistic, but I knew going into that Cincy series we were going to get smacked.
I knew because I was going to the game. I had tickets. So. Although I did see Yoshi and Diego Castillo and Brian Reynolds all hit a home run, and I was like, wait, Yoshi, and finally, Cole Tucker had 2 hits, so
maybe his last 2 hits is a Pirate.
Yeah, might have been.
And I guess that's actually a pretty decent point. Is like inadvertently is like the bench and like the role players on this team this year are just going to be miles better than Josh Van Meter, except for catcher, because I get the Austin Hedges signing. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I get it. You get guys like Tristan McKenzie, who's one of the brightest pitchers in the game, talk about how he helped his development. Like, I get that, but like he's going to be so offensively. Heineman's going to be terrible.
Right.
But like Joe, I actually like. He was hurt all of last year, and I feel like his 2021 stats, he's pretty good. And I think he works in that platoon area. I think Santana and Choi will be good.
Yeah, I'm fine.
And I maybe it's me talking myself into this. I genuinely believe Jack Suwinski will take steps forward this year, and so like
he almost had to, right? Like that was too fluky last year. He couldn't get a hit on the road. I mean, yeah, okay, he struggled against or lefties. That's fine. That a lot of people struggle against lefties, but I mean, this what did he hit? 173 on the road. I mean, that guy
he couldn't hit on the road at all.
He had WRC plus league average is 100. He had a WRC plus of 3 on the road.
That doesn't seem possible. I did that, right? All I'd have to do is lean into one.
I pitched a couple times and you got it on the 3 way to run square plus. Yeah.
And I would say that if post call up Castro was real and we have Bay, those are way better bench options than Diego Castillo and Cal Mitchell ever could be.
Yeah.
So I do think there's like a sizable improvement to this team, but that's kind of like clearing a bar that is stuck on the ground.
Right. Yeah, I'm still concerned that we're going to have, from 6, 7, 8, and 9 are all going to be 200 hitters that, with the OPS of, 670 or something. I mean, Hedges, and I'm 100% on board with the Hedges signing that we're going to have young catchers coming up. We've got young pitchers, put them to work. That's fine. But when you got 3 other guys hitting 179.
Yeah.
It becomes a problem. You can hide one, maybe even two, but man.
And I was
tough.
just I like this lineup a lot when Reynolds, actually quite a bit when Reynolds is in it. I hate it without him.
Yeah.
Just taking him out just like ruins a bunch. He is so important and he is so good.
Internally, right? We have to go get somebody else. There's no, I mean, we just can't throw Travis Swaggerty out there and expect that kind. I mean, I have kind of some hope for Kanan Smith and Jigba. At least he gets on base, and throughout his career, he got nothing to judge him on here. But if maybe if he could get some at bats and at least get on base, be a 260 hitter instead of a but he's got no power, and we keep sort of saying, oh, this guy doesn't have power, but Cruz and Castro, but they can only make up.
Right.
They can only make up for so many guys. Not they have to make up for Hedges, Hayes, Bay, whomever else is.
Yeah,
I think Bay's going to be a plus bat. Like I think he's going to be above average, but I get what you mean. I guess do you think guys like Nick Gonzalez are going to be able to break into the team this year?
That's my topic is a Nick Gonzalez topic.
So that's a great segue.
Beautiful.
Right? We're about 20 minutes in. Let's segue. Doug,
that's my question.
What do we got?
I'm just really curious what you guys think is going to happen with Nick Gonzalez this year, especially if Castro, plays like he did toward the end of last year. If he looks like he's going to be a guy that hits between 20 and 25 home runs, builds a rapport, with Cruz and, turning some, I mean, they did turn some spectacular double plays. They're not that great on the standard, everyday average play, but some of those double plays were amazing. So, and if Nick Gonzalez is yet to tear it up for even a half season in the minors, he seems to start slow. His numbers were decent last year. They weren't as bad as, I think a lot of people said, but, the year before he had one good month in Greensboro where he just crushed it there in, August and into September, and then went to the, Arizona Fall League and tore it up. This year, it was just in the Arizona Fall League. I'm assuming he's going to be at AAA to start the season. What's he going to do? And is he coming up? Is he going to play second? What do you think is going to happen with him?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have flip-flopped on Nick Gonzalez as a prospect more than probably anyone, because I just watching him hit at the beginning of this year was painful. His swing was bad. His pitch recognition was awful. And then he gets hurt. And I'm like, okay, I'm kind of done with him. Maybe trade him off for MLB pitching. But then he came back post-injury and looked like a man reborn. And Nick Gonzalez post-injury was tearing the cover off the ball. And it's hard for me to put a whole lot of stock in Arizona League stats because the Arizona League is just a hitter's paradise. But I actually am semi-high on Gonzalez, and I actually would be okay. If he proves himself in AAA, I want him up in the majors. But I would say that the Pirates cannot afford to be worried about blocking players. If Nick Gonzalez is good enough for this team, you find a spot for him. If that means shunting Castro to play DH, so be it. If it means putting Gonzalez at DH or making him one corner outfield, so be it. But the Pirates are never going to spend the money needed to fill needs. And so if Gonzalez is for real, you fit him into the lineup. Because we just do not have the bats right now to say, no, we don't have space for you. And that is also assuming Castro repeats last year, which I want to believe, and I'm 50-50 on it because Castro can hit the cover off the ball, but his approach is horrible. He doesn't walk and he strikes out a lot. So that's what worries me. And I think Gonzalez really worked on his walk and K rate post-injury. And so that's why I'd probably see him more as a second baseman of the future and Castro kind of slotting into that DH backup third base role.
Real quick, post-injury, Nick Gonzalez, 286, batting average 408 on base percentage, 505 slugging, a 912 OPS, and a 150 weighted runs created plus.
Right. Yeah, that sounds great. We sure squeeze that into the lineup.
Right. Yeah. So like, the joke around Twitter is like he's Nick Bustalis, and I used to call him that. But for now, he's beaten the allegations. I'm slowly becoming a believer again.
Yeah, I'd love to see him. June 17th, June 21st, whenever Super 2, whenever Charrington feels that Super 2 is safely passed. Put him right up there. And yeah, with Castro. There's lots of at bats for Castro, right? He can spell Hayes, he could spell Gonzalez, DH, and I'm sure they'll run him out in the outfield once in a while. Which at this point, given our outfielders, it might not be.
I actually don't know this. I'm gonna look. Has Nick Gonzalez ever played outfield? I don't think he ever has.
I can't say for sure. I don't know.
He is not.
I mean, and like you can always pick up corner outfield. Like it is a possibility. I just would prefer he stick at second base because having a second baseman with that pop is extremely valuable in the league. Second base is not like a place that generally comes with a lot of power. And so like if you can get like a 15-20 home run guy, 120 WRC plus, so that's like Nick Gonzalez is like 90th percentile, that plays, and that's 7 years. That's like 6 years of really good second base play.
Yeah.
That's Neil Walker.
Yeah.
Who was good? Who was like in his prime, had put up some pretty good years.
Yeah, he did. He was real solid.
If Nick Gonzalez becomes Neil Walker, I will be the happiest man on earth. that is a win in every sense of the word.
Yeah, absolutely.
My 2 cents on Gonzalez, just chiming in here real quick. I still like don't have a feel for him because he's like Jekyll and Hyde. He's every single year so far that he's and he got the shaft with 2020, like we didn't get to see him at all, and then also we didn't get to see him really in college. His whole college junior year was canceled, and then he didn't have a minor league season. So like we saw him debut in high A. It didn't start off well. He got hurt. He came back and he started raking, and then like it was like the same exact story again in 2022. I think the one big concern I have with Gonzalez is just when he was drafted, the hit tool was what was being, sold to us as being off the charts.
Competing for batting titles was the
that's what the scouts said, right? Competing for batting titles, and it's like we have seen absolutely nothing that has shown us that that's who Nick Gonzalez is. The strikeout rates are exorbitantly high and nowhere near where you would expect them to be for somebody with a 70 hit tool, right?
Yeah.
The batting averages aren't as high as they should be, but I guess we've seen some more pop than we maybe expected out of Nick Gonzalez. So there's just some trade off there, but yeah, I'm actually just honestly before I make like a decision on what I think about the guy, I need to see him play like a full season. Like I want to see him start to finish, play a year of baseball, and then like show us who he is. Because right now he hasn't done that. And I don't know if you can necessarily count on him to debut this year. Like I think Nick Gonzalez is almost one of those guys where you let him play an entire season in AAA. Like unless he's just banging down that door and forcing the Pirates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like unless he's forcing the Pirates to call him up, I want to see a whole year out of him.
Well, if he's forcing the Pirates to call him up, they're not going to call him up. They learned their lesson with Cruz. They don't do that anymore.
I guess I mean more like if it's like June 15th or July 1st and it's like, okay, this guy's ready. There's nothing else we can like. There's no way we can keep this guy down here. Then I'm sure.
I do get it.
Yeah. And based on his history, come June 21st, we're going to be wanting to write him off again because he just he just started out slow, and then August. And if it takes till August again, then you might as well leave him, especially if Bay or Castro or somebody else is playing well enough. Give him the full. Henry Davis sort of has the same problem. I just haven't seen enough.
Yeah.
Well,
I agree. I agree.
I'm really low on Henry Davis, and I never thought I would say this a year ago, but I think Nick Gonzalez is a better prospect right now than Henry Davis. I know we're not doing hot takes, but yeah, I like.
Yeah.
But like,
I was gonna say it's your hot take right there.
Nick Gonzalez has shown more in the minor leagues than Henry Davis has to me. No, sorry, you had a stats post injury. What was Nick Gonzalez's strikeout rate post injury? Do you have that?
It was about 22%.
No, that's an improvement.
It was an improvement. Yeah, it was an improvement.
Yeah, it's not like exactly what you want to see, but I feel like he's going to be a guy that when he comes up, he's going to strike out 25% of the time, and you're going to have to live with that as long as it hits.
He's going to have to hit for power.
Yeah.
Like if he's striking out 25% of the time, he's going to have to give you that 15 to 20 home runs.
I agree.
Closer
because he's not going to compete for batting titles with that K rate.
No. Oh, he's not.
No.
Yeah, no, I mean, Gonzalez has been an interesting prospect this whole time. I think he was the right guy to pick at the time. You could, I don't know. I was kind of on the fence, like between him, Detmers, the high school bats, Hassel, Veen. Like right now, looking back, all three of those guys I just mentioned would probably be better picks, but that's hindsight.
Right.
I was not big into the high school prospect game back then. Like I didn't really know what that looked like, but looking back and seeing Zach Veen was available hurts my soul. Zach Veen.
I was glad. I liked that draft. And it was only 6 or 7 rounds or whatever it was.
Yeah,
maybe.
5 rounds. Yeah.
But he took. He took all. I think Jared Jones was the only high school player. Everybody else was a college player.
Yep.
And I like that. I was like, all right, let's get some guys that we have a little more information on, and not just some kid that crushed it in Toledo, Ohio high school. Right?
Yeah.
That was an interesting, because like I said, that was the COVID draft, so
right.
you had no high school senior baseball season, so you really had like nothing to go by.
Yeah,
that was a year where a lot of high school guys went to college, which is why this year's draft, all those high school kids who didn't get picked in that 2020 draft are now draft eligible this year. So it's going to make for an interesting college class, this coming draft, I think.
And hopefully we promptly ignore because we draft Dylan Cruz #1 overall. Oh wait, he's college. What am I saying? I don't know why.
Yeah, he's college. Yeah.
Dylan Cruz is awesome. I hope we got him.
So no, good topic there. Anybody have anything else to add? Nick Gonzalez.
Fingers crossed. That's.
All I'll say is that I am way more high on him than I was 6 months ago, and I think that's a good sign.
Yeah, I would say so. All right, so let's move to the shared topic. Right, we're actually going to pause on Pirates talk for a second, and we're going to talk more Major League Baseball and kind of what's going on right now. Currently, the 2023 Baseball Hall of Fame is being voted on. We've seen a lot of ballots get rolled in. So really, I just want to know your all's thoughts. And I guess since Neil, we did your topic first, let's start with Doug as far as just your thoughts on, first off, the 2023 Hall of Fame ballot. There's a lot of controversy here as far as, do the people who, tested positive for steroids, are they automatically disqualified? There's some other people from, the same era where, you could make a case. I think, Scott Rowland, Andrew Jones, Billy Wagner, people like that, you could really make strong cases for. Todd Helton. There's some good ball players on this list. So I guess I'm curious here, Doug, if you had a Hall of Fame vote, how would you fill out this ballot?
I'm over I don't care about the PED stuff anymore. I just put it, make it a special wing. I don't care. We don't know everybody who did. We know some people who tested positive, but lots of guys who didn't test positive, just as likely. I mean, a lot of people were using back then. So I'm over it. I don't care. So I would put it, I'd have no problem. I'd vote Carlos Beltran in. I'm a big fan of Andrew Jones, Billy Wagner. I like Jimmy Rollins and Scott Rowland. So I'm, and Todd. I'd throw Todd Helton in there. My only gripe with him is Coors Field, but he was a good, solid player for a long time. So Yeah, that's my ballot. I'm old, but I'm not that cranky that everybody has to be punished. And, you know, they have to be a saint, although the Baseball Hall of Fame is filled with non-saints, So, yeah, I wouldn't turn in an empty ballot. I don't understand the first ballot thing. You're either a Hall of Famer or you're not. It just, how did Tom Seaver and Ken Griffey Jr. and, Robbie Alomar not make it on, first year? Just crazy. Or 100% even for like Ken Griffey and some of those others. So,
So going through this, Carlos Beltran, you're a yay on, right?
Yep.
I heard Todd Helton, Andre
Jones, Scott Rowland, Jimmy Rollins, and Billy Wagner.
So A-Rod, Manny, Pettit, are you adding them too?
I'm A-Rod and Manny. They're in. Pettit, boy, he's great in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just don't know if he's a Hall of Famer. He's. I'd have to really dive a little deeper on him to sure. But off the top of my head, I always thought he was good. I always thought he was very good. I just never thought he was the ace type or. Mm-hmm. I mean, typically my kind of rule of thumb is I want 5 years of just dominance and then some longevity. Mm-hmm. And winning, generally speaking, winning helps, but it's a little harder in baseball than some others. So, Pettit obviously got it in as far as winning, but I don't know that he ever really dominated. Was he ever the best pitcher on his team?
Yeah, I mean, you look at him. He was he never won a Cy Young. Right. He was a 3-time All-Star. And
that's
he did win 5 World Series.
Right.
So it's how much do you weigh postseason success with regular season and longevity? So I think he's an interesting case as far as if you were taking the PED part out, Pettit's kind of right. I think he's kind of there as a borderline. So
right. Oh, and Sheffield. I think I'd put Sheffield in there too.
All right. Sheffield is one of those guys where the talent off the charts, was the heart always there?
Right. That's the problem with is that you expected more. It should be more. And but man, when he was on, he was something.
Yeah. No, I agree. So okay, so you are all for the PED guys being in. You are pro Coors Field with Helton being in there too, so that doesn't hurt him so much that he's out. And then you got the closer. You got the dominant closer, Billy Wagner, it sounds like.
Yeah, the closer thing, that's another one of those, took Lee Smith years to get in. Lee Smith was dominant. I mean, he was dominant. And when he retired, he had maybe either the most or second most say, and short, the game's changed, so you have to take that into consideration. It's like the NFL with receivers. It took Lynn Swann 20 years to get in practically. And it's like, he was clearly one of the best receivers of his era. We just happen to run the ball all the time.
Yeah. No, I think I generally agree with what you're saying there. I kind of always go back and forth on the PED guys, but I think I'm okay. I'm pro putting them in. But Neil, what are your thoughts on this ballot?
So I'm half pro PED. If you were in the era where the MLB was basically encouraging it and promoting it to the point where Bud Selig is in the Hall of Fame, you're in for me, especially since David Ortiz is in the Hall of Fame. I think once David Ortiz was in the Hall of Fame, kind of dropped the charade. But for me, Manny and Alex were caught multiple times after that era. And so for that reason, I'm not going to vote for Alex and Manny. But so I go Bobby Abreu. I think Bobby Abreu is one of the most underrated players of the 90s and 2000s. He never put up MVP level stats, but he was always up there as one of the best. So Bobby Abreu. I know people hold the cheating thing against Carlos Beltran, but he had its 80 WRC plus in Houston that year. So I'm voting Beltran. Todd Helton. Todd Helton had an OPS, career OPS of like over 800 on the road. Todd Helton gets in easily. Andrew Jones, dominant. I know he fell off a cliff like with his age, but I think he was a special talent. I would vote Jeff Kent. I think he doesn't make it this year. I think he's going to fall off the ballot and maybe sneak in, but the guy was exceptional. I will vote Pettit because he's around 70 career WAR, and almost everyone who gets into 70 career WAR makes the Hall of Fame. He was never like dominant, but I mean, like he put up some special seasons. And he was, pitching in the height of the steroid era, and he held his own and was one of the premier pitchers. He was never the best, but I would put Pettit in. I think that puts me at 6.
Abreu, Beltran, Helton, Jones, Kent, Pettit.
All right. Scott Rowland is an easy in. I think he's the best player on the ballot, the most deserving. He was clean. He played, and he was dominant for a long time. I would also put Gary Sheffield in. Gary Sheffield had a career WRC plus of 141. He was just throughout the 90s, he was one of the best hitters in the entire game. And then I would go Billy Wagner and Francisco Rodriguez, both just excellent closers. And I think that puts me at 10.
That puts you at 10.
Yeah. So I would follow an entire ballot. Ron Cook is a hack and he should lose his vote.
So you go with 10. So you throw in K-Rod. I haven't seen too many people with Francisco Rodriguez on the ballot. I will say, like, when it comes to like a stretch, like Doug mentioned, like that stretch of time where like you got to be dominant. Like he had that.
He definitely had
4 or 5 year stretch where like he was like untouchable there as the closer and for the Angels.
And you can correct me. I think he's 4th all time in saves.
Saves.
I'm almost positive he's top 5.
He is career 4th all time.
Yeah.
Saves.
So yeah. I think that's
right. He's got the 5-year window of dominance. He's got longevity.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you look at it, if we're talking Billy Wagner, then you basically need to be talking K-Rod as well. I mean, both of them have very similar numbers. Yeah. Billy Wagner, they both played for 16 years. K-Rod has 15 more saves than Billy Wagner for his career. So, yeah,
you kind of convinced me on it too, and I'm somewhat hypocritical. I'm like, I always downplay hitters in Yankee Stadium because anybody, it's a pop fly in his home run. But yeah, Pettit pitched in the American League East. He pitched in Fenway. He pitched all those games in Yankee Stadium. And he obviously handled himself pretty well, but we're beefing on Jeff Kent, and Jeff Kent mostly because he's just a jerk.
And I get that. I'm not saying he's like a good guy, but the guy who like segregated baseball is going to be in the Hall of Fame. It really struggles for me to really invoke the character clause, if that makes any sense. Like if Cap Anson's in the Hall, the character clause is kind of null and void to me.
Oh, I agree. It's pure hypocrisy on my part. He used to complain all the time about what a bad teammate Barry Bonds was. Right? Okay, first of all, being a good teammate, you don't go to the media and say another teammate's a bad teammate. Secondly, for all Barry Bonds' flaws, he showed up every day. You're out popping wheelies on your motorcycle and breaking your hand and missing 2 months. You know what I'm saying? You don't have the right to talk about somebody else. You were not a great teammate. So that's
and Barry Bonds lost all leverage when after the 1992 NLC loss, he went to the media and says, if the Pirates offer me 5 years, $25 million, I'll sign right on the spot. He gave up all leverage, and we still didn't give him an offer. So Barry's cool by me.
I think I'm on, and I'm not even saying really more the character clause. I think I'm off on Jeff Kent in the Hall of Fame. I just don't think he was good enough long enough. Like Jeff Kent's 20s, he was just a very mediocre baseball player. He really didn't get good like until he went to San Francisco in his 30s. You know,
Yeah.
then he put together a really strong decade of baseball, but like he put together a pretty just okay decade for like his first 8 years in the league or so. So I think that's kind of where like he's a late bloomer. And I think I don't have anything against the late bloomers, because I think, if we're talking late bloomers who are going to be in the Hall of Fame, like Jacob deGrom is a Hall of Famer, right? Mm-hmm. Even though he's only going to be a dominant pitcher for 10 years max, right? He was so dominant in that time that doesn't even matter what he did before, right? Whereas I think Jeff Kent, like he put together some good seasons. He put together one really good season. But I don't know if it was enough to like make up for his mediocrity throughout the rest of his career, I guess.
Yeah. Well, if it makes you feel any better, if you asked me to choose one guy to knock off that list, it would be Jeff Kent. So,
and Andrew Jones he kind of reminds me of Fred McGriff. Andrew Jones, I think he was clean, so he fell off after about 10 years because he wasn't juicing, and now we penalize him for not having longer career and longer, like Fred McGriff, when he had 493 home runs, but he was clean. And we're mad that he didn't have Rafael Palmeiro and Sammy Sosa totals, So what do you want? Do you want the clean guys? You can't have it both ways. So
and it's interesting, like the whole PED thing. I think my stance on it for the most part is like, I don't think it has like, for me personally, it's not really an era thing. It's more, if it weren't for the PEDs, would you still be really, really good? And I think you can say, like, for people like A-Rod or Manny or Bonds, that the PEDs, take them away and they're still three of the best hitters of all time, right? Whereas you take someone like Sammy Sosa was nothing like without his PEDs. It was like once he took the PEDs, then he was like Superman, but like he was nothing before that. So I think that's kind of where I'm at when it comes to PED use. But no, it's an interesting ballot because there's a lot of guys who, me personally, like I grew up with, right? And you watch these guys, and they're now on the ballot, and so it's kind of interesting to see. Okay, well, like Scott Rowland, I'm surprised it has taken as long as it has for Scott. I think this might be the year like Scott Rowland finally gets in.
I hope, yeah.
But like just excellent defender, always a really good hitter. Did it for a really long time. And it's like, I don't know why he's not in. And there's a few other ones like Andre Jones, same thing. Like the glove, like, the bat was good, but the glove was like best center fielder maybe of our lives. At least like post millennium. Right. So it's like, what are we waiting on these guys for?
Yeah. It seems odd that, with all the information we have, and again, these guys, we're not talking about someone from 1923. It's like we saw these play, man. You were scared the time Andrew Jones came up. You were sure he was going to catch everything hit out into the outfield. And same thing, Scott Rowland, he never made an error. Just a phenomenal, dominant defensive player, solid hitter. And again, it seems like Scott Rowland's another one. Hey, he didn't use PEDs, so his numbers aren't as good. You're comparing his numbers to those guys, but you're keeping those guys out and also keeping him out. So I just don't understand the prism from what you're looking at this.
And I don't really get like the obsession of like first ballot, like punishing guys by not voting them. Like if you think he's a Hall of Famer in year 5, he's a Hall of Famer. Right. Why are we like playing this charade where like they have to wait their turn?
Right. Yeah.
It makes absolutely no sense to me. And then like, I don't even know why, but this one writer this year voted for 3 players. It was Roland. I think it was Billy Wagner and someone else, and he dropped all 3 this year and submitted an empty ballot.
I saw that. Yeah.
And I'm just like,
so what did he do?
Happened in the past calendar year.
Did he have some strikeouts this year that we didn't know about? Right. No, I heard a writer, and this was way back when, but he said that he puts nobody in the first year because the first ballot, the first year of the Hall of Fame is Babe Ruth and Ty Cobb and Christy Matheson and Honus Wagner and those guys, and none of those guys. Well, so you mean to tell me that Willie Mays, didn't make it, wasn't good enough for you? That Mickey Mantle, some of these guys. I mean, it's just you're a Hall of Famer, or you're not. There should be just one chance at it. You know what I'm saying? So we can stop with this nonsense. You either vote him in or he's off the ballot the next year. But I mean, I don't know who some of these guys are or what they're thinking. That Jim Rice was punished for years because he wasn't media friendly. Dude was an awesome baseball player.
And that's really where, like, even though, like, I could understand an argument where Bonds doesn't deserve to be in the Hall, it really felt like it was like a media, like the media just didn't like him. Right. And so which is why Ortiz isn't, because Ortiz is a media darling. So suddenly PEDs don't matter.
Yeah. He's lovable copy. And Bonds and Clemens are jerks. So.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Clemens is a jerk. I mean, throwing the bat at a guy like Mike Piazza, that's just not cool.
Yeah, I lived in Boston for 9 years. I was there for his last 4 or 5, and he was 41-40, I think, his last 5 years in Boston. Then he went to Toronto, and I think he found some herbal remedies that helped him, and he dominated again. Mm-hmm. But I mean, he was still. I think from just what he did in Boston, he was. Oh my God, he's a jerk. He was terrible to the media, but I don't care. Like I don't even care if that guy's like Bonds. He was a terrible teammate, I'm sure, in a lot of ways, but I don't like everybody I work with. I mean, but they're produced. I mean, that's the biggest thing I want from my team. And he worked his ass off. He didn't just take the magic pill. He was a hard worker. He showed up. He played 162 games. No load management. I mean, and batting fourth in that lineup, third, wherever they had him. That's a good teammate, as far as I'm concerned.
Now, it might be a fun question. Might be a little controversial.
Cole Tucker's a great guy.
Would you put Curt Schilling in the Hall of Fame? Would you put Curt Schilling in
big moments? But he's another one. I don't think his career was that good. I mean, the World Series with Arizona, the ones with Boston. I mean, he had great moments in that, but he was a late bloomer. I'm just not sure that his career numbers are good enough. He's close, Hall of very good, but
I mean, he put up 80 WAR in his career. There are not a lot of guys who get to 80 career WAR and have multiple. He had almost 4 separate. He had like 4 or 5 separate 7.5 WAR seasons and above. Like I understand why he's not in. I think from a pure stat standpoint, he belongs in the Hall, but he also kind of set his own campaign on fire and burned it intentionally. So you lie in the bed you sleep with, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, he's a nut, but they called him Red Light Kurt in Boston because he couldn't wait to be interviewed. Like he was always looking to get in front of the camera and talk. I mean, he was definitely a different kind of dude. But yeah, I mean, he won 3 World Series and he was a significant contributor. But I think he never won a Cy Young. I think he may have finished second once or twice.
Yeah. He also probably has the most famous moment in championship series history.
The
ketchup in the sock.
Yeah. That was I mean, it's stuff like that. Just again, I don't think helped his case, right? Yeah. But like I said, politics are wacky.
It's one of the first things I ever remember because my dad's a Red Sox fan, and when I was 4, I remember being sick and staying up watching that ALCS with my dad. And now I just look back thinking I could have been a Red Sox fan.
Yeah. My son was born in Boston, and I think he's about 8 years old. He comes to me and he says, "Dad," he says, "I know this is going to make you mad, but I want to be a Red Sox fan." And he says, I love the Pirates. I love Jason Bay. He says, but I never even had a winning record in my lifetime. He's 8, But I said, I can't argue. You're born in, just a little north of Boston, and they're good. And not so much on our end. So.
Yeah. Well, that was good. So we got through our 3 topics there. No, appreciate you guys coming on here. Real quick before we wrap things up, New Year's resolutions. What are our New Year's resolutions? Did we make any?
I did. Yeah.
All right.
A1C's got to come down.
Okay. All right.
My A1C is higher than Sawinski's batting average on the road. So, and it's the same ones every year. Get the blood sugar line and save a little money.
There you go.
All right. Well, I guess
anything.
I need to get back into shape. And I'm just gonna be aiming for a half marathon race and actually try to compete in a half marathon race in November. So that's gonna be good. That's gonna be the goal this year.
There you go. Mine's health related too. I've just ever since COVID happened, I was just like, no one cares what you look like because you just sit inside all day. But yeah, I need to get back in shape for true as well. But
COVID just ruined my respiratory system, and so trying to get back into running has been horrible.
Yeah, so not fun. But no, that's all I said. First podcast of the year. So I said thanks for coming on, you guys. This was round 2. Yeah, round 2 of NS9IDOL was a lot of fun. It's always fun to talk about baseball. We can talk about baseball forever. So good stuff there. But no, I appreciate you guys hopping on again. I think we're gonna have another episode tomorrow with 2 other contestants. I don't know who those 2 are, but we'll have a different host, 2 different contestants. So come back tomorrow, same time, 9-ish, right? We did start on time today, so that was a big positive. But yeah, other than that, any closing words, you guys?
Everybody have a great 23, especially the Pirates.
Fire Ben Sherrington and force Nutting to sell.
Oh, there we go. I like both of those.
Both of those are. I'm on. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Have a good one. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, guys.
Thanks.